Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're on updates eve for Tunnels of Terror here. This is the last bit of a teaser got released. I don't know, this got released some hours ago, and the update is literally happening. And for me, the update's happening in 12 hours or something like that. So here's the last bit of cards. I don't think these are all the cards. They showed us six, and then six more, and then I think there's potentially another like 4 to 5 cards left over. Check out the cards real fast. Power Strike. This card was shown in the video in the teaser trailer for Tunnels of Terror. Power Strike. Every 3 seconds gain plus 10 bash damage, stacking up to 10 times. All charges are consumed on use. I don't know if this applies to the Combat Knife card. If it does, that's kind of cool. It'll make Combat Knife do 140 points of damage on an initial strike. Plus, and when it comes to the stumble, the multiplier for the stumble will be applied as well, I assume. For the fist, for your basic fist, your fist does 1 point of damage. At max stats, you'll be doing 110 points of damage, so you'll be able to, knock out zombies, no problem. But like the combat knife and the fist, they have stumble multipliers of 40. Oh, the combat knife has not the 40. I'm sorry. The bash, though, has a stumble multiplier of 40, which means we do 1 point of damage multiplied by 40, and that's how much stumble damage you do. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Swing Point has a great video on stumble and stumble damage and the math and how it works, but essentially, if we want to stumble things, we want to do lots of damage, and we want to have a really high stumble multiplier. What's interesting about this is that if we're going to be doing 101 points of damage, and then we punch something, that really going to do times 40? Does this mean Power Strike will allow your fist to do 4,000 points of stumble damage? I think Tall Boys have 250 stumble health, right? A nightmare mode. Tall Boys or Bruisers, 300 is the Bruiser. I mean, we're talking 4,000 stumble damage, which means that you can just punch any of the mutations and stumble it. That seems kind of crazy. I think there's definitely some potential here for some weird wonky deck to sort of, you might want to build a couple of cards around it, but this could potentially be a tool, right? I talk about tools. I'll get these cards to get your economy going, and then we'll transition into a different tool. And I'm a solo queue player, so usually have decks that accomplishes lots of roles in some ways. Power Strike, kind of interesting here, potentially to be able to stumble literally everything. I think you might be able to build a couple of cards around it. Give yourself a nice stumble tool. Overprotective. When a teammate within 15 meters receives 5 or more damage, gain 20% increased damage for 5 seconds. That's kind of cool. It's going to be an interesting and reliable source of damage, potentially. Sort of plays into that role of the worse my teammates are, the stronger I become, which is going to be, like, I think, a whole new archetype, a whole new line of thought for some cards, which is super cool. But I think, potentially, this is going to be another solid damage card, because I think this happens just so regularly. And interestingly enough, I wonder if you could trigger it by shooting your teammate. Anyways. Keep in mind that in Nightmare mode and No Hope mode, this is most likely going to be triggered on every source of damage except for Acid and Fire, because I think they do 3 and 4 damage or something like that, depending on your teammate's damage resistance if it's in the negative. Stealthy Passage. This is an interesting card. Allows disarming of door alarms, car alarms, and birds. The target will trigger if you are interrupted, disables your quick slot. Team effect, gain 25 copper per success. I think this card is insane. This card is going to be super broken, I think. Truly, truly broken, I think. One, I do want to state that I like the current state of alarm doors. Alarm doors can no longer be cheesed by having a zombie break it open for you. I love that. I think it added more depth to the game, even though other people hated it. Because before, the correct thing to do was have a zombie open it, and it was super easy and super consistent to do that on most maps most of the time. Once they got changed where zombies couldn't break open the door, only the occasional mutation could, it meant that maybe you need to consider buying an extra toolkit. 350 for an alarm door, and it's just for one horde. Is that really worth it? Probably not, but it's up to you to make that choice. All of a sudden, you had lots of choices to make now as far as how you potentially dealt with or economized in a way that provide yourself with more toolkits. So like all of a sudden, Utility Scabbard looked like a great card. So I'm happy to see that I think they're going to be keeping the current state of Alarm Doors. I think it's correct, because before it was obviously a bug. Stealthy Passage are going to allow you to then sort of negate that effect. I like how they understood that this, for the most part, is going to be an economy card, because the issue was toolkits just aren't worth it as far as trying to find or buy to deal with the occasional alarm door. The potential was very up and down. So I think this is great as far as dealing with all the alarms, and I'm interested to see what it looks like when you're dealing with the birds. You're going to shoo them away in a quiet fashion? I don't know. But what's insane about this card, what's really, really crazy, is the 25 copper gain for the entire team. That's a net gain of 100 copper. I'm assuming this card will not stack. I'm assuming that Stealthy Passage will only trigger once per player. The player that's actively using the card will get the benefit of it, and thus the team. But for one alarm, you get 100 copper gain to the team. 100 copper gain to the team. What's interesting about this in Nightmare mode, and I'm sure it'll be true in No Hope mode, is that car alarms, birds alarms, door alarms, like, very easily come across many of those. It will vary from mission to mission, but basically, if you have this card, if someone on your team has this card, you get the free farm. You get the farm alarms now on the map. And so if you find four of these 3 alarms, that is equal to share the wealth. Each alarm is 100 copper. You need 4 of them. Share the wealth. Anything beyond that is, well, it's money, baby. You know what I mean? And I think in Nightmare mode and probably No Hope mode, that'll be very easy to do on a lot of maps to get 4 plus potentially. I think Stealthy Passage will be a must-include economy card, at least in team compositions. It's really interesting to see how this pans out. The loss of the quick slot, not a big deal. Probably, well, it's going to be a big deal for quick play. If you're a quick play player like myself, you probably won't run this card because we need the stun gun because our teammates are dead 90% of the time. You know what I mean? But I think in team play, this card will almost certainly be a must-include in team play. Pinata. Killing Ridden with a accessory has a 15% chance to drop an accessory. You throw a grenade, you have a chance to get something back out of it. I think that's super cool. Super cool, and it goes into the when you use an accessory, you get a chance, a reuse chance on it, as well as now if you blow something up, you get an additional shot at the reuse chance. I also think this is very clever from the devs, that they can continue to build on the reuse chance concept without just simply stacking tons and tons of reuse chance, because you can just get maybe 30 or 40, even 50% reuse chance. Can you imagine? And you throw a grenade, you get it back. Like, that would create the same exact problem that grenade duping did in the beginning of the Back 4 Blood's lifespan there, right? So I like that they're building into the archetype of a reuse chance style deck, but again, it's a different role, very low number. Potentially here, right, if you have Hung on your team, I imagine this would be 20%. Or no, I think it's different. It's a different role, right? Never mind. Anyways, super cool idea. And I assume it says Ridden, so it doesn't need to be a special. So if you throw a Molotov and light up, 20 zombies that are running in through the horde, that's 20 rolls. That's pretty good. I think Pinata will be the ideal reuse chance card when it comes to, obviously, throwing things. You're not going to be hecking up zombies with a medkit. But I think for us Hoffman players, as well as people who design decks like with deep pockets and things like that, I think this is going to be a really, really cool card potentially for economy. Well rested, 25% team overheal. I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it's similar to the team bolstered health concept, but it does healing instead of temporary health. So you can potentially, if the devs have talked about this already and I've forgotten, like I don't remember. So I think this is potentially going to give you an additional 25% health if you use an accessory that takes your health pool above it, but it won't degrade because it's not temporary health. I don't know, but then 10% team healing efficiency, which would then in turn make that healing effect even better. But also healing efficiency applies to group therapy. At the current state of group therapy, if you heal a teammate, and then it will give health to the rest of the team with group therapy, that is affected by healing efficiency, and I believe it's the healing efficiency of the target that's receiving the initial heal that results in the team heal getting boosted. It's really weird. Talk to Swing Point about it. He knows all about it. But kind of a cool card. I think in theory, potentially a good support card. I tend to like the support cards that are just more passive and quick, and then just a couple of strong, powerful cards, and then you just move on to something else. Sadistic. I'm sorry, Sadist. When a teammate within 15 meters receives 5 or more damage, gain 20% of the damage as temporary health. Can only trigger once per second. Again, falling in that line of if our teammates are bad, we get stronger. Very cool idea. I think really goes to show that there's so much potential here for different card types, different deck archetypes, and just different trains of thought as far as how you can build a deck. I think we get a really good glimpse into what the future potential of Back for Blood deck building can be. Very, very cool idea and concept here. So for solo play, I think this can be potentially a very good card as far as keeping yourself nice and healthy, as well as sort of in theory being a team player, because if you're going to be a solo queue player and you're going to run this card, you're going to want to be with your teammates. Sort of these cards sort of force you to stay with your team, sort of force you to be cooperative, if at the very least by you simply being there, giving them, I don't know, moral support. Very cool idea or concept here. And I think too, this is where cards start getting very confusing, which I'm excited about, because that makes deck building more dynamic in some sense. And if you look at it as a whole, it gets very confusing. But I think for most people who just look card to card, not that big of a deal. But what I mean by confusing is, what if we're running like Bodyguard, which says that if a teammate takes damage, we receive half of it. And then how does that 50% get reduced by resistance or not? How does the math apply? What if we're running Bodyguard and Sadist? Do we get the temporary health first and then Bodyguard is applied, or vice versa, and etc.? As you can see here, there's lots and lots of new interactions now that are going to be very confusing, very ambiguous, and going to give Swing Point lots of opportunity to do lots of science. I'm sure he will gladly enjoy, because he seems to be into it. But right, so very cool, just an idea from a deck building design point, because a new train of thought, as well as shows how many weird and crazy interactions there can be out there with the deck building right now. That's the new 6 cards. I'm excited to see the last bit of cards that are revealed. If I recall, they said like 16 or 17 plus or something like that. But let me know what you guys think. I think very excited. One quick bit to talk about also is the new no hope mode. I'm not going to show you. The devs made some Reddit posts, I think. From what I've been hearing is that no hope mode will have you starting off with all 15 cards in your deck active on the first mission, which is insane. It's going to change deck building in terms of order no longer matters. But also damage decks are going to be crazy strong now. The issue with damage decks is that they were slow. They needed to build up over time. And in solo queue, it was really hard to build other tools that are more reliable for solo clutching, while also trying to build damage on top of it. In team play, though, it was much easier to build damage over time because your teammates would pick up the slack for other areas of the gameplay and things like that. But now it just doesn't matter, in no hope mode at least. So, going to change deck building a little bit, as well as potential. So, like, the idea of having a slow deck no longer matters. It's going to be cool, and to make no hope mode a little bit more fun and things like that. As well as, I think from what we're hearing, no hope mode is not going to be that incredibly difficult, but that might be famous last words. We'll see. I think good players are going to roll right through no hope mode, no problem. The other thing too about no hope mode that I'm hearing is that there's going to be no matchmaking for it. There's no quick play for it, from my understanding. In fact, if you want to launch into a no hope game, you're going to have 3 teammates with you already, or you're going to have 3 bots guaranteed. And if that's going to end up being true, and we'll find out, that makes me quite sad, because I've built my Back for Blood channel around the idea of being a solo queue player, trying to show and teach you guys how you can beat the game on its hardest difficulty with bots and with random people. And random people are more interesting than computers. And sometimes random people are even harder than bots and things like that. So I'm a little sad about that. If that ends up being true, then I'll just have to show you guys how you can beat no hope mode with bots. But then beyond that, sort of hoping that I can be able to stream solo queue no hope mode, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the future.